experience. Those of you who are a regular part of this community, welcome back. We love having you on the journey with us. And those of you joining us for the very first time, special shout out to you, huge welcome. And today is going to be an incredible time together with God, worshiping, learning, and growing. Now, if you haven't already liked or subscribed to our channel, I would strongly encourage you to do that. You can tap our Elevate icon at the bottom corner or go onto the actual desktop version. Either way, you're smart, you'll figure it out. But that certainly helps us grow this community. And the other thing we encourage you to do is share this message, this episode with people in your sphere. Hey, so every week we love to worship together. It's incredible to have this platform. Wherever you are in the world, you can join with us and worship. Today's worship partner is Highlands Worship, coming from Birmingham, Alabama. So tune in, open your heart. The words are going to be on the screen so you can sing along as well.
Who From the depths to the dawn, you are there. Your promise is strong. I will trust with all that I am. Jesus, Jesus, oh, how I need you. You stay the same. You are good in your ways. Jesus, Jesus, oh, how I need you. You are enough. All my trust is in you, Lord. You fashioned me for my heart, search my soul and know every part. Love so great, but never too far. And through the storm, you're the calm. In every war, you've already won. Life secure in your loving arms. Jesus, Jesus, oh, how I need you. You stay the same. You are good in your ways. Jesus, Jesus, oh, how I need you. You are enough. All my trust is in you, Lord. All my trust. You are powerful, God above it all, and I believe in you. I believe in you. You do miracles, the impossible, and I believe in you. I believe in you. You are powerful, God above it all, and I believe in you. I believe in you. You do miracles, the impossible, and I believe in you. I believe in you. You are powerful, God above it all, and I believe in you. I believe in you. You do miracles, the impossible, and I believe in you. Jesus, Jesus, oh, how I need you. You stay the same. You are good in your ways, oh. Jesus, Jesus, oh, how I need you. You are enough. And all my trust is in you, Lord. You are powerful, God above it all, and I believe in you. I believe in you. You do miracles, the impossible, and I believe in you. I believe in you. You are powerful, God above it all, and I believe in you. I believe in you. You do miracles, the impossible, and I believe in you. I believe in you.
Okay, so today is the 7th installment of our series, Keep the Faith, where we've been taking a flyover of some of the Hall of Faith inductees that are written about in Hebrews chapter 11 in the new part of the Bible. And if you've missed any of them, or if you've missed all of them, you can either go back and watch them on this channel, or if taking them portable audio version is easier for you, then you can find them and find our podcast on your favorite podcast app or platform. Just search Elevate Church Perth and we'll be there. And hey, I encourage you to subscribe to our podcast, because we put a new message up every single week, so you won't miss one. But to catch up on this, the first 6 weeks has never been easier, and there's an incredible amount of great lessons that we've already been learning as we've been trying to grow our faith individually and together. Today is week 7, and yes, it's me speaking, so a little bit of overdose of Mark Pomeroy, which we don't like to make a habit of, but here we are. So lean in and get ready for God to speak something encouraging and life-changing to you. Well, hey there, Elevate friends and family. Great to have you with us today. A number of years ago, I was in Whistler, Canada, organizing a leadership conference over there. Whistler, Canada, if you aren't familiar, it's an incredible part of the world. Very famous in the wintertime for its snow-related activities, and in the summertime for water sports, mountain biking, and golfing, and quite a number of very prestigious golf courses up there. Now, because I was there for work, I knew I wasn't going to get the chance to play golf on any of these courses. But what I thought I would do is every morning I'd go for a run on the golf courses, get up early before the course opened to the public for golfers, and just run up and down the various fairways just to kind of check it out. And on the first day, I went to one particular golf course and I ran down the first fairway. I then turned and ran down the second fairway, and then I started to run down the third fairway, and towards the end of the third fairway, something caught my eye. A very large brown bear. Now, I'm from Australia. We don't have brown bears, but I've seen them on TV. I've watched the National Geographic Channel, and I thought to myself, you have two options here, buddy. Just keep running, then hopefully the bear doesn't see you, and then you can keep going on your run down the next fairway and so on. Or you can just stop immediately, turn around, hope the bear hasn't seen you, and just run back to your hotel. Which is precisely what I did. I didn't even give it a second chance. Now, I'm aware some people, adventurous, might label me a coward. I, however, liked to think that the move I made was a wise one. Now, we're continuing our series, Keep the Faith, and today I want to introduce you to somebody who actually does qualify as a coward, and yet God never actually branded him as one. So, if you've got your camera, on your smartphone, how about you scan this flow code? It's going to take you to Judges chapter 6. And today I'm going to introduce you to a man, a Hall of Faith inductee named Gideon. Now, the backstory is that Gideon was an Israelite, and at Gideon's time, the Israelites had essentially turned their back on God. They drifted away from him, and they started worshiping other idols and other gods. And as a result, God allowed a ruthless enemy nation, the nation of Midian, to actually oppress the Israelites for 7 years. The Midianites invaded their lands. The Midianites destroyed the Israelites' crops. And as a result, the Israelites took to hiding in caves and progressively starving to death. Gideon, a future Hall of Faith inductee, enters the pages of history as a coward. This is where we first meet Gideon. Then the angel of the Lord came and sat beneath the great tree at Ophrah, which belonged to Joash of the clan Abiezer. Gideon, son of Joash, was threshing wheat at the bottom of a winepress to hide the grain from the Midianites. So there's Gideon. Picture him threshing grain. If you haven't threshed grain recently, or you're not, in fact, boned up on what that's all about, here's how it goes. Firstly, the idea is that it's about separating the edible grain of wheat, for example, from the straw, the inedible part. Secondly, that process requires wind, because the person would throw the whole thing up into the air, and the inedible part, the straw part, is lighter. That will blow away, and then the grain part, which is heavy, would fall back to the ground. Therefore, third thing you need to know, because the process requires wind, you wouldn't do it somewhere below ground, which is precisely where Gideon was trying to thresh wheat, in a wine press that's actually dug below ground. Basically, Gideon was trying to look busy, just stay out of sight of the Midianites. And who can blame him? After 7 years of oppression to Gideon and the fellow Israelites, this enemy, the Midianites, seemed insurmountable. Well, the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon and said, "What a coward, hiding from the Midianites." Dunks on Gideon like, come on. Okay, no, that's fake news. This is actually what happened. The angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon and said, "Mighty hero, hello, the Lord is with you." Now, you got to wonder if Gideon even bothered looking up. He heard some voice calling out to somebody, "Mighty hero." Pretty sure he didn't think that they were talking to him, like, "You talking to me?" We don't know, but what we know is that Gideon, at this moment in history, he's just a terrified farmer trying to survive. But right now, the fact that the angel of the Lord spoke to him and called him mighty hero is a reminder that God calls us by our destiny, not our history. The Lord brought us out of Egypt, but now the Lord has abandoned us and handed us over to the Midianites. This is Gideon's response. Then the Lord turned to him and said, "Go with the strength you have." Like, this is the starting point. Go with the strength you have. Get started. You might not have everything. You might feel inadequate. I'm going to come back to that. But go with the strength you have and rescue Israel from the Midianites. I am sending you. See, while God is interested in our present, He's always looking to our potential. And the common mistake that too many people make is to only look at their present. Well, this is my circumstances. This is my history. This is what's happening to me. As if God didn't know that, first of all. And secondly, if we only look to our present, we won't take the time to look up and look ahead and look forward to our potential. We start negotiating with God. If you knew, kind of trying to crop ourselves up or trying to get God to change His mind. Like, God, are you sure? I don't think you're sure. I think you've got the wrong guy. So here's a question. Are you in the habit of meeting God at the potential table or the negotiating table? See, the potential table is where God's trying to convince you of what's possible. The negotiating table is where you're trying to convince God of what's impossible. And right off the bat, Gideon took a seat at the negotiating table. "But Lord," Gideon replied, "if you're wondering, do I tend to sit at the potential table or the negotiating table? If when God asks you something, your initial response is, 'But God,' there's a clue. You're at the negotiating table. How can I rescue Israel? My clan's the weakest in the whole tribe of Manasseh, and I'm the least in my family," as if God didn't know. Gideon's assuming God's made a mistake. Gideon's assumed he's overlooked some stuff, the details. The Lord said to him, "I will be with you, and you will destroy the Midianites." This is a promise. As if you are fighting against one man. God is never outnumbered. "All right," Gideon replied, because remember, he's at the negotiating table. "If you are truly going to help me," God just said he was, but "show me a sign to prove that it's really the Lord speaking to me." All right, so the angel agreed. I don't know if he went, "All right, let's get this over and done with." I don't know. But he agreed. So the first sign is that he sent Gideon home to go and fetch and prepare some food. So Gideon prepared and cooked a young goat and brought the goat along with some broth back to where the angel had met him. And the angel instructed him to put that goat on a rock and pour the broth over the goat. And the angel tapped that rock with a stick, and fire came out of the rock and totally burnt and consumed that goat as a sacrifice to God. Sorry, did you get that? Fire came out of a rock. If I'm standing by, I'm thinking, yep, all right, that's it, I'm convinced. And surely Gideon was convinced. I mean, okay, Gideon, come on, time to hit the GO button. Nope. And Gideon said to God, "All right, if you're truly going to use me to rescue Israel as you promised, prove it to me this way. I'll put a wool fleece on the threshing floor overnight, and if the fleece is wet with dew in the morning and the ground is dry, then I'll know you're going to help me rescue Israel as you promised." Well, that's exactly what happened. Gideon woke up in the morning, the fleece was wet, like wringing wet, and the ground around it was dry. "All right, Gideon, let's go." Nope. Then Gideon said to God, "All right, please don't be angry with me, but let me make one more request. I mean, the two signs are good, but I'd like a third. Let me use the fleece for one more test. Let's kind of do it in reverse. This time overnight, let the fleece remain dry and the ground around it wet with dew." And then he woke up in the morning, and that's exactly what happened. I got to admire God's patience, I really do. But it demonstrates that God wanted Gideon to grow in his faith, wanted Gideon to trust him more. And it's a reminder, and we've been saying this throughout this entire series, faith is something that can grow over time. It's not static. It can be static if you don't work at growing it, but it doesn't have to be static. It doesn't have to be fixed. Faith is something that can grow as we learn to trust God more and more in more things, in more areas, and in greater ways. So it demonstrates that you can wait for a time at the potential table. You can, while you're waiting, allow God to grow your faith at the potential table. But just don't confuse the potential table with the negotiating table, because the negotiating table, you never get up from the negotiating table. You can get stuck there. You have to move and take a seat at the potential table. Now, Gideon at this point had asked some stuff of God. God actually also asked something specific of Gideon. Now, a year ago, just over a year ago, a couple of our team members asked me about home air filtration systems. And I know that sounds a little bit random, but we have in our home pretty super duper home air filtration systems. And the reason that our team members were asking us about them is because Perth had experienced days, and I think maybe even a couple of weeks at this point, of smoke everywhere. And it was 24 hours a day, and it was day after day. And this smoke was coming from controlled burns in the bushes and forests surrounding the Perth area. And the burns produce, significant amounts of smoke, and that can cause, respiratory issues for people. People have difficulty sleeping. You can't get away from it. And so hence our team members wanting to put some home filtration in their home to help battle against this. And to hear that and think that this controlled burn of the forests produces all this smoke and it's affecting people's lives might sound a little bit irresponsible. But the reality is that, in the forestry department here in Perth do this every single year in sort of, I think, autumn as it happens. And I'm not here to give you a lesson in forestry management, but essentially the benefits outweigh the risks. One of the most important benefits is that a controlled bushfire will help prevent the likelihood of a larger uncontrollable bushfire happening down the line. That night the Lord said to Gideon, "Take the second bull from your father's herd, the one that's 7 years old, and pull down your father's altar to Baal and cut down the Asherah pole standing beside it." God instructed Gideon that he had to burn something down. He had to take something down. Then build an altar to the Lord your God here on this hilltop sanctuary, laying the stones carefully, and sacrifice the bull as a burnt offering on the altar, using as fuel the wood of the Asherah pole you cut down. See, Gideon's father had been playing both sides. I mean, he believed in the God of Israel, but he'd started worshipping Baal and other false gods. And God recognized that there's this generational issue that was going on there. And before Gideon could launch out into his destiny, he had to remove something that he was tethered to, something in his past that had the potential of holding him back. In this case, it was an idol. Now, we might think of idols as being something that's, from centuries ago and something that's not relevant today. But the fact is that an idol is anything in your life that takes the number one priority in your life. In other words, God is something other than number one, number two at best, and maybe even further down the list. And by that definition, even good things can become idols if we make the good things the ultimate things, the highest priority things in our lives. And so we're not talking today necessarily about bronze statues and Asherah poles in our lives, but today's idols, they're very real and they're very pervasive, maybe far more pervasive than things were in Gideon's day. I don't know. Here's a few examples. The idol of the pursuit of more money and stuff. Now, money's not bad. In fact, money's a tool, and money, like any tool, if it's used the way God intended it, it's very powerful. But it becomes a problem when we make it, and the pursuit of money and stuff, our number one priority. When we start to place our faith in money and stuff rather than putting our faith in God. Here's another one. In 2023, it is skyrocketing up the charts of the most pervasive idols. Comfort. We have access to more ways to be comfortable, to get comfortable, to remain comfortable, to make excuses and so on than ever in history. To choose whether we're going to allow ourselves to experience discomfort or no thank you, I'm going to go with the comfort option. But here's the problem. Jesus promises that his followers will face trials, persecution, and difficulty. And whilst comfort's not necessarily bad at the times that it's appropriate, if that's your number one priority, then when Jesus calls you to do something that's going to be risky, that's going to cause you to be uncomfortable, there will be a tendency to want to say no to Jesus and say yes to comfort. Well, in that instance, it's clear that comfort is an idol. And then there's an even longer list. The idol of your appearance. Spouses and kids can become idols. And that's not popular to say sometimes, but the reality is it's true. You can look it up for yourself. Status can be an idol. This idea of caring more about what other people think of us than about what God thinks of us. And there's plenty more, and I don't have time to unpack them, but here's Marco's pro tip. Constantly audit your life to clearly calibrate whether or not God's number one. Because the reality is that we don't typically wake up one morning and God's gone from number one to somewhere else on the list. It's normally about a priority creep. And when we notice that, we've got to stop and recalibrate and make sure there's no idols getting in the way of our destiny. And then God asks Gideon to do another thing that, at face value, this one seems counterintuitive. Soon afterward, the armies of Midian, Amalek, and the people of the east formed an alliance against Israel and crossed the Jordan, camping in the valley of Jezreel. Then the Spirit of the Lord clothed Gideon, the coward, with power. He blew a ram's horn as a call to arms, and the men of the clan of Abiezer came to him. He also sent messengers throughout Manasseh, Asher, Zebulun, and Naphtali, summoning their warriors, and all of them responded. 32,000 men responded to the call to stand together to fight a common enemy. 32,000. That seems remarkable. It started with one, Gideon. Now it's 32,000. Until you realize that the assembled armies of the Midianites and their allies were 135,000. So do the math. Even at this moment in time, the Israelites were outnumbered 4-1. So maybe it's safe to assume God then says to Gideon, okay, good start, 32,000, 4-1. If you can just rally up another 100,000, then we can get about tackling these Midianites. But instead this happened. The Lord said to Gideon, you have too many warriors with you. Like, wait, what? If I let all of you fight the Midianites, the Israelites will boast to me that they saved themselves by their own strength. See, one mistake that too many people make is before they hit the GO button, doing what God's asked them to do, they want to wait until they've got everything they need, until they've got all of their ducks lined up. And they'll sit at the negotiating table telling God, not yet, I need more of this, you don't understand, But if we feel that we have to wait until we have everything we need to do what God's called us to do, that's not really a step of faith. So God instructed him to thin the herd, and 22,000 men left the battlefield before the battle had even begun. So now we're talking about 10,000 Israelites versus 135,000 Midianites. Yeah, so of course God said, no, there's still too many. Wait, what? Yeah, Gideon, here's what I want you to do, and when you do it, you'll be left with 300 men. 300 Israelites versus 135,000 Midianites. And the Lord told Gideon, with these 300 men, I will rescue you and give you victory. This isn't the first time he promised. He's reminding him this promise still stands. Give you victory over the Midianites. So if you've ever felt that you're inadequate or what you have is inadequate, you're in very good company. In fact, you're very well positioned for God to do something for you, in you, and through you. For God to do a miracle, for God to do something so incredible that He will get the glory, because when you trace things back and when the people in your sphere look at what's happened and trace it back, the only plausible explanation is this must have been God's mighty hand at work. See, God doesn't test our faith so that He can see how much we have. He tests our faith so that we can see how much we have. I'm going to repeat something I said last week. A pro tip. When God's promised something, don't ask the question, can I? Ask the question, how can I? This is a cheat code. Some of you should be writing this down right now. Burn this into your brain. How can I? How can we? You'll stay stuck if you sit around umming and ahhing at the negotiating table, just asking the question, can I? Instead, get up and take your seat at the potential table and say, all right, God, I believe you, so I'm ready. How can I? Give me a strategy. I'm ready to go. So God gave Gideon a strategy. He told him to go sneak down into the valley and listen to what the Midianites are saying. And as Gideon and his servant were approaching the Midianite camp, they heard one Midianite gentleman telling a friend of theirs about a dream he had. And he dreamt that a loaf of bread had come rolling down the hill into the valley. Some of you can relate to this dream. You carboholics, you've dreamt of bread before. A loaf of bread had come rolling down the hill into the valley and rolled over and crushed the tents of all of the Midianites. And the friend, the other Midianite, said to him, well, that dream can only mean one thing, that the God of Israel has already given the Israelites the victory. Well, when Gideon heard the dream and its interpretation, he bowed in worship before the Lord. Then he returned to the Israelite camp and shouted, get up, for the Lord has given you victory over the Midianite herds. Hordes. See, this is a really insightful step. Gideon worshipped before the battle because he believed and trusted that God's promise was true, that they'd already won. This pro move, worship before the war. Thank God for His promises before the war. Thank God for His power before the war. Thank God for His provision before the war. Thank God for His presence before the war. So here's my question, and we're going to land this message. What's God calling you to fight for? What's God calling you to get up from the negotiating table, trying to convince God of why it's impossible, and take your seat at the potential table and allow God to show you what is possible, and start thanking Him for that. Start asking Him for strategy and start thanking Him in advance for that victory. Is it your health? God, how can I improve my health? How can I? Is it financial provision? How can I open my life up to you being my provider? Is it a relationship with your spouse or a family member or your kids or a colleague that you're praying for a strategy, but trusting God ultimately for the victory? Is it business or career opportunities? Is it exams coming up in your studies? Whatever it is, start worshiping before the war. Start thanking God for all of the things that He is, all of the things that He does, and know that God's already won. Hey, so we're going to do something a little bit different. At the end of the message, I spoke about worshiping before the war. And I asked if there's anything that God's calling you to fight for right now in your life. So before we tune off and shut down, I want to give us an opportunity to worship one more time. And specifically, to be taking the opportunity to thank God in advance for giving you the victory that He's promised. This song is actually called You've Already Won. And we're not going to put the lyrics up on the screen. We want you to just sit or stand and just open your heart and use your own words to thank God and allow His presence and His power to fill you like it filled Gideon. So here is incredible, powerful truth. You've already won.
1, 2, 3, 4.
When I speak your name, darkness has to flee. 'Cause there's a power there that chases my enemies. Fear can conquer me. I live in victory, 'cause you've already won. Death is overcome. The power of your love has rewritten history. 'Cause you've already won.
I've got this confidence, your power alive in me. 'Cause even hell now shakes at the mention of your name.
Fear can't conquer me. I live in victory, 'cause you've already won. Death is overcome. The power of your love has rewritten history. You've already won. Death is overcome. The power of your love has rewritten history. You've already won.
Oh,
You've already won. My sin is erased, my past is set free. 'Cause death couldn't conquer what you done for me. You kicked down hell's doors and brought back the keys. In life and in freedom, it's your victory. My sin is erased,
My past is set free, 'cause death couldn't conquer what you done for me. You kicked down hell's doors and brought back the keys, and life in freedom is your victory. My sin is erased, my past is set free, 'cause death couldn't conquer what you done for me. You kicked down hell's doors and brought back the keys, and life in freedom is your victory. You've already won. Death is overcome. The power of your love is rewritten history. You've already won. Death is overcome. The power of your love is rewritten history. You've already won.
Oh,
You've already won. You've already won.
Hey, one of the ways that together we are able to reach people and build people and fulfill our mission as a church together is by people like you investing financially, resourcing us, allowing us to achieve our mission. So wherever you are in the world, you can use the links that are on the screen right now to give electronically. It doesn't matter, you don't have to be in Australia. You can do it. It's never been simpler. And for those of you that have been giving up to now, well done, well played. We appreciate you so, so much. And if you haven't yet taken that step and started giving financially, maybe that's the thing, the step of faith that God wants you to take today. Well, that's it for our online experience today. It's been great having you with us. Next week is going to be the 8th and final week of our message series, Keep the Faith. Be here, bring someone, share this with someone. Have a great week, and we look forward to joining together next week.